Well, the dog rises, yo. Well, the dog rises, yo. And I'm dog rice. You know, I want it to be uncomfortably long. You know, I want you kind of looking at each other in the audience going, you know, it's a little, oh, shut up. Good morning. How are you? This is Doug Rice. Wake up. The hell's wrong with you? Where you think you're at? You think you at home? You are not. Negroes, how are you? Well, we've made it to the end of another wonderful week. So listen to me as I speak. Friday, October 6, 2023. And thank you so much for tuning in to me. This live goes out to YouTube, goes out to Facebook, goes out to Twitch, goes out to X, formerly Twitter, because, well, Elon's a bitch. And also it goes to Discord, which commonly simply gets ignored. But I don't do this for the numbers. Oh, you shouldn't have to wonder. No, I don't. Every morning at 7 a.m., Monday through Friday, you'll find me here. What am I doing? I'm going to tell you. For most of my life, I've read books. I've done a lot of reading. I've done some writing. And there is nothing that stimulates the mind, the thought process, as the process of reading a book. And let me just land here so I don't leave you shook. Remember that reading is something that they did not want Negroes to do. They didn't want Negroes to read like me and you. They wanted us as ignorant as humanly possible. And I can tell you without a doubt, all the reading we're doing right now makes them shout. All right, I'm done. All right, look, it's 7:02 in the morning. We're kissing 7:03. And here you are listening to me. Today, we are going over a publication, folks. This book, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Negroes, Hebrews throughout the Americas and the world. Chokehold. That's the name of it. Chokehold. Policing Black Men. Oh, my goodness. Now, I would rather leave the title of the book just as it is. Chokehold, Policing Black Men, Paul Butler, author of Let's Get Free. Now, let me give you some background on what you're looking at. I know that I am known for providing PDFs, and I have found a way to combine my Amazon library with the PDFs, and I've gotten them adept to presenting either PDF or book. And so there'll be a lot more information I'll be presenting, but understand that I cannot provide books that are on the Amazon platform for any amount of money or even free. But I still maintain that I will read these publications, by God, because that's just me. I don't know. Yeah, so, and I wanted Detrina, the moderator extraordinaire, to also pay attention to this announcement because I sprung it on her. She's going to recommend some books. Any of you that might recommend some publications that might be of interest to be audibleized and edified to the Negro Nation, please put them forth to the Doug Rice station. I don't know. I said station. It could be a show, but let's go. All right. So chokehold. Interesting thing. A renegade prosecutor's thoughts. Can I do it? No. Former federal prosecutor Paul Butler. Boom, look at that. I can make the print bigger. Former federal prosecutor Paul Butler provides legal commentary for MSNBC, NPR, writes for the New York Times, Washington Post, law professor at Georgetown University. He is the author of Let's Get Free, a hip-hop theory of justice, the new press, and lives in Washington, D.C. So for any of the oppressors that might be interested in somehow, reaching out and messing with him, dear God, don't leave your bona fides in the damn. Just tell him you wrote some books and leave it at that. All right, so to continue this show, the Renegade Prosecutor's radical thoughts on how to disrupt the system. Here is where the point I'm not really with this. I'm not interested in disrupting it as much as I am exiting in some way, shape, or form. But it's interesting, chokehold. This book was not permitted in prisons. I'm going to say that again. This publication that you see was not permitted in prisons in this country. Several Black men attempted to order this book because it gave insight not only into their present circumstances or current circumstances, but as I understand it, it led some assistance to their perhaps reversing decisions that landed them in prison in the first place. So it wasn't just that this book was something that might set afire Negroes within a prison system. No, that would have eliminated the book from the general public in all circumstance. This book, this publication, has within it key admissions, key policies that this individual, as a former prosecutor, Paul Butler, exposes some of these types of chokehold-like policies within the Negro communities. And if let loose within the prison population, the prison administration felt that many of the imprisoned Black men in the prison system would somehow find a key within this book to unlock the doors of the system that has a chokehold on their freedom, and they denied them possession of this book in that circumstance. Folks, if that doesn't set you afire, I mean, I don't know. I mean, are you dead inside? Dear God, there are certain circumstances that lay within the confines of this prison we all find ourselves trapped within. There are policies not only that have been set in place, but in the past set in place to minimize the advancement of Negroes within its confines. And it's a measured, planned, laid out response to any perceived rising of our circumstance, and appropriately so, as this is punishment, and we shouldn't look to rise under these circumstances. In my mind, we should always look to leave. But this book, we're going to examine, we're going to take a look, and hopefully it won't leave you too shook. Okay, I said it, who knows? So here we go, 2017, lot of forward movement in this book. All right, lot of pomp and circumstance. The preface and the introduction, I've looked ahead a bit. Let me tell you, boy, they go on a bit. But fortunately, this gives me very good control, so I like this. Now, it's interesting, constructing the thug. We're just going to review a few pages of each chapter, folks. That's what we do. And so if you bear with me, maybe we'll learn a thing or two. Who knows? Let me see if I can. Yeah, I can. Look at that. All right. Constructing the thug. I hope everybody can read that. American criminal justice today is premised on controlling African American men. Many other people, including African American women, immigrants, poor white people, Muslims, and Native Americans, are caught in its snares. But they are collateral damage of a process that is designed for Black men. I hope you can read that because I'll read it again. Let me go right to the next page. Let me read that over because it's such a powerful introduction, I think. Constructing the thug. You need to take a look at this. All right. American criminal justice today is premised on controlling African American men. Now, this comes from a prosecutor that stood within the very confines of the system designed to keep him a thug. This Negro wrote this opening statement, if you will. Many other people, including African American women, immigrants, poor white people, Muslims, and Native Americans are caught in its snares, but they are collateral damage of a process that is designed for Black men. This obviously does not blunt the pain that the system has caused people other than African American men. Collateral damage is as destructive as any other kind of damage. The point is that Black men are the reason why police and prosecutors have so much power in the first place. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Chokehold, Policing Black Men, the first 100 words. From a man that made a living, fed his children, paid his rent, fed himself. And these are the opening words. That's powerful stuff right there. You imagine the kind of power these police have. And to have this said in this kind of circumstance, I kind of understand. You know, I'm almost certain the warden didn't read, but this first page. I do. I believe that. All right. Fear and anxiety mark our daily interactions with African American men. Many people see them as a threat. Police, lawmakers, and judges step up to make us feel safer by controlling these men and by any means necessary, including by authorizing violent forms of policing and punishment on a massive scale. The most problematic practices of American criminal justice, excessive force by police, harsh sentencing, the erosion of civil liberties, widespread government surveillance, and mass incarceration are best understood as measures originally intended for African American men. The chokehold is a way of describing law and social practices designed to respond to African American men. It is a two-step process. Part one is the social and legal construction of every Black man as a criminal or potential criminal. Part two is the legal and policy response to contain the threat, to put down African American men literally and figuratively. Think of these two parts as garbage in, garbage out. The garbage in is anxiety about Black men that we internalize. The garbage out is law and policy based on this anxiety, which positions African American men as public enemy number one. Americans of all races and genders are complicit in the chokehold. Indeed, African American men ourselves perpetrate the chokehold, even as we are its victims. Sometimes we are scared of each other, and other times we exploit the fear that people have of us. Some Black men do things such as commit violent crimes that reinforce the stereotypes. Some cultural performances associated with Black men, such as hip-hop music, also feed the fear of them. So does the fact that many of the best-known African Americans are professional athletes, men celebrated for their big Black bodies. It is not so much that African American men endorse the thug construction as accepting reality. We try to make it work for us. There are benefits in a patriarchal society to being perceived as hyper-masculine. But in the end, these benefits, for example, street cred, and a bad boy kind of sex appeal, a sorry compensation for the chokehold's crippling burden. This chapter explains the first step of the chokehold, the construction of the thug, based on the presumption that every African-American man is a criminal. It is important to remember that this is a rebuttal presumption. African-American men can do things to communicate that we are not dangerous. It would not be an understatement to say that the vast majority of Black men engage in those kinds of performances every time we step out of the house. It's also true that many people can do and treat individual African American men with respect and kindness. The chokehold means, however, that conjuring up a criminal is part of how many Americans process encountering a Black man. It's an instant reaction, a habit of mind, but one without tragic consequences. Well, now, laying that foundation, are you? Listen, folks, if the truth hurts your delicate ears, please carry your weak-minded ass out of here. And I mean that. Some of you don't mind hearing Jews talk about the Holocaust all day goddamn long. You'll sit in a movie about the Holocaust and come out in tears. I know, I've done it. But you let us start talking about the plight of being a Black man in this country, and so many of you decide to cringe in contempt. I wish you would. If you don't like this, get the hell out. What we see when we look at Black men. Some amazing new scientific research provides insight into how people perceive African American men. When people see Black men, they don't know they have a physical response that is different from their response to other people. Their blood pressure goes up and they sweat more. Now, the references, as I pause for a moment, right there. Just click on it and you'll be there, I suppose. When a white person sees an unfamiliar Black male face, the amygdala, the part of the brain that processes fear, activates. In one experiment, white people were shown photos of either a Black, white, or Latino man. They were then directed to look at a Chinese alphabet character like such, which we would have been unfamiliar to them, and asked what they thought about it. People who had just seen a photo of a Black male described the Chinese character in more negative terms than people who looked at photos of a white or Latino man. In computer exercises, people linked the faces of white men with nice words like joy, love, and peace. They associate Black male faces with bad words like nasty, evil, and awful. If we ask to pair the Black male faces with the nice words, it takes them longer. In another experiment, it took drivers twice as long to stop at a crosswalk for a Black man as for a white man. Stanford researchers found that teachers favored harsher punishment when reviewing files for students with stereotypically Black names like Deshaun or Darnell than students with whiter sounding names like Jake or Greg. Now, let me pause there for a moment. Folks, these are the ABCs of a life in the Western world regarding the treatment of black men in it. These individuals are conditioned to see us in a negative light and always, and don't let that goddamned smile they offer to you tell you any different. It's a subtle kind of decision that they make. It's sinister in its nature. Some don't even realize they do it. They get offended if you point it out to them. And I'll be damned, I will be, if I go through the rest of my life ignoring the facts. Next, let's continue. These are carefully controlled studies done by scholars trained in research, but ordinary African-American men report the same kind of experiences. The writer, John Edgar Wideman, wrote an op-ed in the New York Times about an informal experiment he conducted for 4 years. It was based on his experience taking Amtrak twice a week between Providence, Rhode Island, and New York City. On Amtrak, you can sit wherever there is an open seat. I know this is true. Wideman noted, almost invariably, after I have hustled aboard early and occupied one half of a vacant double seat in the usually crowded car, the empty place next to me will remain empty for the entire trip. Good. The sports journalist J.J. Adande has described a similar effect on Southwest Airlines, which also has open seating. On planes that have 3-seat configurations, if black men are in the window and aisle seats and the middle seat is vacant, no white person will sit there unless it is the only vacant seat on the plane. You know what I'm saying? And we all know it. We've all experienced. Every person in this live knows that these people don't like us, and damn it, why do we love them so? And I mean this. Now look, you'll find the most liberal, democratic, we are the world, kumbaya motherfucker get on the train and not sit by you. You know what I'm saying? So don't tell me how liberal you are. You're a racist ass white man. Well, by far. That's right, I ended it there. What do you want me to do? Next, Adande says African American men love Southwest because they get extra leg room. Nice. It's true that there are some benefits to the whole menace to society thing. I often take Amtrak between Washington, D.C. and New York City. The train cars have 2 seats on each side of the aisle. I like it when people don't sit next to me because I prefer having both seats to myself. Do you know what he's saying? Yes, you do. All of us have sat in a chair and watched right there as whites, Asians, and Mexicans pass by the aisle with a goddamned smile. You know it. When Wideman's op-ed was published, it received a lot of attention in the media, and for the next month or so, white folks on the train made a beeline to sit next to me. Dear God. One time there were rows of empty seats and this white dude in the suit plopped down right next to me. Big smile on his face. I appreciated the gesture, but I wanted to move to another row. Believe it or not, that white guy provides some limited hope that we can overcome the chokehold. Oh, really? Before he read the Times article, he probably didn't realize that he was avoiding sitting next to African-American men. When he became aware of his discrimination, he checked it. He made an effort to remedy it. Like the elders say, when you know better, you do better. People can actually unlearn bias the same way. One person had people look on a computer at a photo of a black person's face that was paired with a stereotypical image like a gun or a watermelon. They had to click no every time they saw an image like that. After 40 minutes of doing so, they registered less prejudice against African Americans. Other studies have demonstrated that if white people are exposed to photos of stories about successful African Americans, it reduces their bias. My optimism is limited, as is mine. However, because it doesn't cost that white man anything to sit next to me on the train. I'm cute for an old guy. I smell pretty good. Remedying discrimination in criminal justice, however, might actually require white people to give up some benefits. Oh, did you hear that? Remedying discrimination in criminal justice, however, might actually require white people to give up some benefits. Let me tell you something. When you talk about giving up benefits regarding white folks get nervous. Okay, I'll leave that there. Some folks may not be willing to bear with those costs. I'll discuss this more in the next chapter. For now, let's ask a more basic question. Are black men actually dangerous? Well, I don't know. What do you think? So that's chapter 1. We're gonna leave that one done. Again, you can go to Amazon and pick this book up, Chokehold, Policing Black Men. We're gonna go to chapter 2. For goodness sake, folks. And this comes from, again, a former prosecutor. You can't do better than that, in my opinion. In my opinion, you can't do better. Now, he's got some pretty long chapters. I will tell you that. I'm looking for chapter 2. We're going to find chapter 2 before it's through. Nope, there it is right there. I bet money. All right. So this is going to be chapter 2. And bear with me. Here's what I do. Boom. Thanks so much. Controlling the thug. Whoa. So the first chapter was creating a thug, right? Making him. And I can't imagine. It was a pretty long chapter. I don't want to go through all of it. This one, controlling the thug. My God. City of Ferguson, Missouri has approximately 21,000 people. In 2013, the city's police officers obtained arrest warrants for 32,975 criminal offenses. In other words, Ferguson had more crimes than it had citizens. Okay, but Ferguson was not an especially dangerous place. The majority of the arrest warrants were for people who had not paid traffic tickets. Other offenses included the manner of walking in the roadway and high grass and weeds. The manner of walking, you know, they got in Washington, D.C., as I pause for a minute, they got in Washington, D.C., a law that says you can't walk like some brothers walk, you know, with the step in their step, and you can be ticketed for this. That's a point I didn't want you to miss. That's an interesting, so I wonder what an offense includes when it includes the manner of walking in the goddamned roadway, folks. That's some highfalutin, ain't it? Ferguson police charged a man named Michael with making a false declaration because he told them his name was Mike. Hold on. Hold on. I didn't see that. Did I? Let me see. Ferguson police charged a man named Michael with making a false declaration because he told them his name was Mike. Folks, let me ask you, you think there's any good that is somehow going to come out of that? I mean, I'm just, I'm a little bit perturbed at that one right there. Let me go. Michael had been playing basketball in a public park and went to his car to cool off. The police approached him and for no apparent reason accused him of being a pedophile. Interesting. They requested his consent to search his car, and Michael cited his constitutional rights. declined. At that point, Michael was arrested at gunpoint. In addition to making a false declaration, the police charged Michael with 7 other offenses, including not wearing a seatbelt. Michael had been sitting in a parked car. You know, and what this indicates to me is that white power had taken hold of Ferguson. Nothing more than some Klansmen wearing badges, these slave-catching suckers whose existence culminated in the chasing of Negroes. And somebody let the reins off these bastard-ass dogs with guns. Because I can't imagine the kind of contemptuous hate you got to have to come up to a brother and simply, you know, aggravate, press on him because you can. I mean, none of these clowns wearing badges are men, that's for sure. That just pisses me off. I'm sorry I had to stop for that. Yeah, I had to let it out. So there it goes. A woman called the Ferguson police to report that her boyfriend was assaulting her. By the time the officers arrived, the man was gone. Looking around the house, the police determined that the boyfriend lived there, and the woman admitted that he was not listed on the home's occupancy permit. The police arrested the woman for permit violation and took her to jail. African Americans are approximately 67% of Ferguson's population, but they constituted the vast majority of arrests, especially for minor offenses. They made up 94% of arrests for failure to comply, 92% for resisting arrest, 92% for disturbing the peace, 89% for failure to obey. You folks want to live in this goddamned country? You tell me you still want to stay? I don't imagine how any of you can even exist at peace within yourself, knowing that this circumstance exists anywhere in the country they call free. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, as long as there are enough of them so that a few raise children to write manifestos and drive miles to kill black people on a Saturday, I will not be content in this goddamned country. Ferguson is America. A few miles away lies St. Louis, which has approximately 320,000 citizens and approximately 320,000 citizens and approximately 300,000 outstanding arrest warrants. In Houston, the police have a backlog of 300,000 warrants. In Chicago, the number is around 120,000. In New York City, police are much busier. There are 1.2 million arrest warrants waiting for the police to serve, as the writing here. The second step of the chokehold is the transformation of anxiety about black men into law and policy intended to contain and control them. The chokehold is the reason the United States has the largest and one of the most punitive criminal justice systems in the history of the world. Our methods of defining, investigating, and punishing crime are centered on African American men. Now, did you read that? Now, when they arrest a white boy for crime, remember, more likely the law was intended for your black ass. You understand me? That's the reason they took Dylan Roof to Wendy's. Oh, did I break your concentration? The hard stare. In the contemporary USA, the black man is he who must be seen. John Fisk, media studies scholar. African American men and boys are constantly under watch. Police, security guards, school safety officers. Basically, anybody with a badge and a gun has a mandate to focus on blacks. In the words of FBI Director James Comey, police officers work in environments where a hugely disproportionate percentage of street crime is committed by young men of color and by goddamned design, you thick-skulled Neanderthal. Something happens to people of good will working in that environment. Oh, really? You know what? Fuck their goodwill. I am sick of this. Let me tell you something about these cretins who qualify themselves beyond all measure to wear a goddamned badge in this country. Part of the requirements and prerequisites of having that fucking badge is that you be a racist motherfucker. And if you're black, that helps. How dare you somehow claim that only the good motherfuckers decide to become cops? Who said that? Some of those vile, putrid, rancid pieces of white trash are police officers, and there's no good in these motherfuckers. So don't tell me about how good people can turn bad. If you are a bad person, you always were. Now, let me get back to this. After years of police work, officers often can't help but be influenced by the cynicism they feel, and fuck them. Cops are likely to pay more attention to two African-American men than two white men, the FBI director said, because the black men look like so many others the officer has locked up, really. And the white man looks like so many other white men that are white men, doing what white men do. And by God, I tell you, what they do is far worse than you. The focus on black men is not racist. You go fuck yourself, Mr. Comey. He says it's a mental shortcut. It's almost irresistible and maybe even rational in his mind. You know what? Wow. Now I'm pretty glad Trump fired him, and that complicates the relationship between police and the communities they serve. Let me tell you something. Police don't serve communities. In black communities, police don't serve. Police oversee. In black communities, there's no relationship that describes a friendly nature between police and the constituency with which they patrol. And this dude Comey is living in a fucking fantasy fucking world. And I tell that to his pale goddamned face. It ignites me when I read the quotes of some of these benign individuals completely oblivious to their history. They simply call it like they see it, not like how they fucking done it. But pretty soon they're gonna understand they ain't the ones that run it. Okay, I'll stop. The problem is so extreme that police are actually more likely to pursue vehicles when they can see that the driver is black. Okay, the newspaper USA Today looked at data from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. When it's dark outside and the police can't see the race of the driver, more white drivers get pursued. Well, damn. When police can see the race of the driver because it's daylight or it's a lit area, then black drivers are more likely to be chased. The study, it's a study, folks, it's not a fucking opinion. You hear me? The study also demonstrated that African-American drivers were more likely to be pursued for reasons not related to safety, like having expired registration or being in a stolen vehicle. White drivers tended to be chased for more serious reasons, like reckless driving or having recently committed serious felonies. The beatdown. Oh, let's talk about the beatdown. Frequently, the chokehold ends with violence. This violence can take any number of forms. Sometimes, when things are done to black men, we don't think of them as violent in the way that we would if these things were done to anyone else. You feel me? The next chapter explains how this is true about the police tactic called stop and frisk. Stop and frisk. You remember that? You still grinning? For those of you that wish to smile, get the hell out of the live. Don't even stay a while. But often the violence the chokehold authorizes are the old-fashioned kind, beating and killing. Most urban police departments use some version of use of force continuums. Police are supposed to start at the top and work their way down until they get the subject to comply. Here are federal guidelines provided by the National Institute of Justice, which is the research agency of the U.S. Department of Justice. These guidelines are recommendations to local police departments, but they are not required to be followed. Let's take a look, shall we, Pete? Officer presence, no force is used. Considered the best way to resolve a situation. The mere presence of a law enforcement officer works to deter crime or diffuse a situation. Officers' attitudes or professionalism notwithstanding and not threatening, right? Verbalization, Verbalization, force is not physical. Officers issue calm, non-threatening commands, such as, let me see your identification and registration. That's not a calm, non-threatening demand. It's, excuse me, sir, may I please, Mr. So-and-so, such and such. You know, we'll get it right. Officers may increase their volume and shorten commands in an attempt to gain compliance. Short commands might include stop or don't move. Yeah, fuck you. Empty hand control. Officers use bodily force to gain control of the situation. Soft technique. Let's pay attention. Officers use grabs, holds, and joint locks to restrain an individual. That's a soft technique. Here's a hard technique. Officers use punches and kicks to restrain an individual. Less lethal methods. Officers use less lethal technologies to gain control of the situation. Blunt impact, baton projectile, or immobilize a combative person. But here's the thing. What this actually does is give them permission to escalate. Because as they put hands on any of us, we instinctively resist, unless there's something about human nature that I missed. Chemical. Officer may use chemical sprays. Okay. Conducted energy devices. Oh, tasers. Okay. Lethal force. Here we go. Officers use lethal weapons to gain control of a situation. Should only be used if a suspect poses a serious threat to the officer or another individual. Stop. The problem we have with that particular rule is that they have so many cowards running around with badges these days. Just putrid cowardice, wearing uniforms, scared to death of anything that doesn't look like them in a goddamned mirror. And the mere movement of something or someone that doesn't resemble these rancid, racist, putrid creatures is all the position they need in the position that they heed to pull out their gun, and then it's done. Unless a Negro is smart enough to run. And all I got to do is say Sandra Bland, and on command, you'll say her name. Don't forget what we're looking at, folks. This book, Chokehold, Policing Black Men by Paul Butler, was outlawed in the penal systems of the United States. It was banned. And now as I read it, I understand. All right, let's continue. Many officers use deadly weapons such as firearms. Really? To stop an individual's actions. Many police departments use versions of these procedures. Here's a representative example. Charlotte, Mecklenburg, North Carolina, officer presence, verbal direction, soft-handed, empty hand, pepper spray, empty hand, intermediate weapons, lethal force. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're done. I got 6 steps to end your Negro life, or you better run. That's in Charlottesburg. Let's see. In Florida, it gets a lot more shorter, right? We got officer presence, verbal destruction, direction, restraint devices, transport, or takedown. No more. Pain compliance. What the fuck? Counter moves. We wrestling, intermediate weapons, and then lethal force. That's a few more steps. I think that's 8. Dallas, 5. Texas, 5 and you're no longer alive. Presence, control, empty-handed control, intermediate weapons, dead. You heard what I said. Boys, stay out of Texas. San Diego, we got 4 and then 3 more. That's 7 and you're in heaven. That's in San Diego, folks. We know based on the stories of African-American men that police use these methods all the time. We know from the data that most of these methods are more likely to be used against black men. We even have specific information from the relatively few cities, including Houston and New York, that collect and release this information to the public as shown in figures 4 and 5. Oh, what? Let's do it. Wait, go back. Oh, there's 4 and 5. Boom. All right, so based on data from Houston, blacks are more than 87% as likely as whites to be kicked, pepper sprayed, or shot with a stun gun. 87%. Oh. Okay, blacks are more than 170% likely more than whites to get grabbed. So they don't put their hands on each other as much as they put their hands on Negroes. And remember, folks, a black cop will pause for the cause before he more likely put his hands on a white person in this city or state. Let's go. Blacks are more than 217% as likely to be handcuffed as whites. 217% more likely? Damn, go commit a crime. Lord have mercy. Okay, let's go. Black men are more than 305% as likely as whites to have a gun pointed at them by police. Now, I don't know about you folks, but I don't know, that kind of chaps my hide. You know, that's not something I will abide. How can any of us in this country, looking at the facts, these are receipts. This book, this publication by Paul Butler brings it real. It's not about how the fuck you feel. This is a situation that we must deal. And listen, that's real. And I mean that, man. All of us need to be looking for the exits. They're losing their collective minds in this country. They're turning more and more a racist, white nationalist, neo-Nazi country as they can, with Donald Trump leading the goddamn way. And these statistics give you insight as to what we can expect if they regain power. Blacks are more likely than whites to be target of non-deadly force by police. In the source, we see an empirical analysis of racial differences in police use of force. National Bureau of Economic Research, working paper number 22399, July 2016. Folks, these are receipts. Figure 5. For every 10,000 stops they make, police officers in New York, here we go. For every 10,000 stops, they place their hands on blacks 2,165 times, on whites 1,845 times, 17% more likely for blacks for them to put their hands. Pushing into walls, the stats are 18% more likely. Handcuffs between whites and blacks, 16% more likely. Drawing their weapons, 19% more likely. Pushing to the ground, 18% more likely. Pointing their weapons, 24% more likely. And using their baton, 25% more likely for us than for our white criminal counterparts. New York police officers use coercive tactics against blacks more than whites. And there is the source. But exactly how often on a national basis, we don't know, even for the most severe use of force, police shootings. The information about itself that a society collects and does not collect is always revealing about the values of that society. We know as we should exactly how many police officers were killed in the line of duty, but we do not know, as we should, exactly how many civilians are killed by police. Number of police officers killed in the line of duty in 2015, 94. Number of civilians killed by police in 2015, estimates include 991, 1,146. There's a number of mix there. The Washington Post estimates that African Americans are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by police than whites. The reason that we don't have firm numbers on the number of people in the United States Police Departments killed is because that information is not required to be made public. Of course, police departments themselves know exactly how many people their officers have killed. It's just that most departments do not have to tell anybody else. Police departments could be forced to share this information. The President, Congress, state lawmakers, city mayors all have ways of requiring data about police shootings to be made transparent. But in general, government officials do not seem to think the public needs to know how many people our law enforcement officers, public servants paid by tax dollars, kill every year. Now, I know they're going to get into statistics here, but as you probably know, we're coming up on the hour, so I got to end the show. I'm going to continue this tomorrow, go through some more chapters, and maybe even some chapters thereafter. I don't know. I hear your laughter. All right, folks, it's Friday, the Doug Rising Show. All right, it's Friday. Well, it's Friday. I don't know. I might not be able to go through this. It's an interesting look. It's an interesting peer into what we know to be true, the chokehold on Negroes in this country. And I appreciate every one of you being here. I thank you so much for lending me your ear. Today, you're going to go into the weekend. You're going to have a good time. And I think there's a holiday, if I'm right there, a holiday coming up on Monday. So I will see you on Sunday at noon. So please make some room. All right, that's it, folks. Thanks so much. I got to go and thus and such. All right, you guys, I'm out of here. Bye-bye. Wait, hold on. Oh, listen, you know what I do. You know it's not through. It's just that I can't find too much that doesn't leave caucastic traces. But get that goddamned grin off your faces. Thank you so much. You guys have a good weekend. We'll